The crux of effective teaching. So, in this video, I'm going to share some of the tips on how to make your teaching impactful and efficient. So tried and tested methods. That is what this video is all about. And who am I to speak to you about impactful teaching, right? So I have won this award. Is one of the prestigious award from Ministry of Human Resources and Development, erstwhile, and now it is called Ministry of Education. It's called Teaching Innovator Award in 2016, conferred in 2019. Okay, so well, I'm not claiming myself as the best teacher, but at least I stay as a student. I think that is one of the biggest hallmark of an effective teacher, right? Stay a student lifelong and open to learning, open to taking the feedback from the students. So some of the tips that I would like to share with my fellow teachers who are listening to this video. Tip number one is to read more, to increase your core competency or domain knowledge. It's a management term, core competency. It means that whichever field that you are in, really need to improve that field, right? That the field that you teach, isn't it, the subjects that you teach. For instance, if you teach evolutionary biology like me, are you aware of the new theories of evolutionary biology? For example, niche modeling, a very, very recent one, or a theory of punctuated equilibria, completely missed out in the syllabi of most of the Indian universities I have come across. Are you including these concepts in your teaching? Are you staying up to date with what is happening in the world of sciences? Science and technology progresses every single day. So unless you stay a student, be humble and open for the knowledge, you can never be an efficient teacher. At least students are coming to your class to learn something really interesting and something new which they didn't knew, right? So if you're teaching like me postgraduate level or PhD level coursework, students have already spent more than a few decades now, at least one decade in schools, right? They already learned a lot of things, and most of the students do read beyond their school textbooks to increase the domain knowledge. So something new has to be there to take home after attending the classes, right? So that is why increasing the core competency is really important. That is to read a lot more, you know and of course, the best one of the good tip is to read and refer the best textbooks in whatever subjects that you teach, at least three textbook, to give a different perspective on same concept, different applications, different examples, so please do check out different textbooks, whatever the course. For instance, ecology, so, or odium's textbook on ecology, or different other textbook on ecology. You can read completely from page 1 to page ends to get the complete perspective, you see, especially for the youngsters and even the senior teachers. If you're not reading the latest edition of the textbook, you're really missing out a lot of information, because these textbooks are coming with the new edition almost every other year. Even every year molecular biology textbooks are updating, it's coming up almost every year. So unless you are actually reading the latest edition of the books, you're really missing out a lot of things, and beyond the textbook, I highly recommend you to read some of the top level review articles and meta-analysis, at least the review articles in the field that you work on. So it's really, really important to stay in touch with the latest discoveries, latest developments in your field. And also a good practice would be subscribe to the TOL, table of the contents, right? Table of contents of the journals. Okay, so that is really important. So at least you know that what are the new papers coming, which areas are now picking up, so what the things that you really need to prioritize in your classrooms, right? So that's very, very important. And also, to improve your teaching, it's a good practice to see how the good teachers teach. So with the advent of the YouTube now, you can watch some of the fantastic teachers. It need not be from your field. It could be, for example, I teach evolution and also statistics. but I can simply look at how the economics are being taught, and similar teaching methodology I can incorporate into my class to make it more efficient, you see. So watch some of these greatest teaching videos in the YouTube. I would really strongly recommend that, and emulate their methodology in teaching. Okay, so that is very important. And stay a student lifelong, right? So Albert Einstein famously said that the day you stop learning, you start dying. The death starts when you stop learning, you see. So keeping up to date with the latest developments in the field of science and knowledge is really important. So keep on learning, to improve your teaching. That's really important, especially if you're teaching science subjects, because the progress is made every single day. The new papers are being published, so that challenge the established worldview. The paradigm shifts are happening almost monthly basis. So stay up to date. For the uninformed, I do have a YouTube channel with a lot of subscribers, completely ad free channel. Okay, so this particular channel also do have the science show called Curiosity, which I release every month. That completely covers what moved the world of science in the last month. Okay, so comprehensively review some of the papers, the top papers. Yeah. And the science show also do include the opportunities for the young faculties and researchers and students. So do check out that show. Yeah. And also there are so many podcasts available these days. Some of my favorite science related podcasts are NPR Science Friday, and also Naked Scientists, that is coming from the Cambridge University and Wellcome Trust. Okay, so uh, stay up to date with what is moving in the world of science. That's really important. And also, if you're in humanities, check out the current affairs and include some of the case studies in your class. That's really important. Yeah. And do maintain a file for each course that you teach, each subject that you handle in each semester. At least have a file, a physical file you can maintain. Or if you're like me, more into the digital technology, you can have a notebook. Usually I work with the OneNote. I really like the OneNote because even it has got the optical character recognition. For example, if I'm writing the physical notebook, I can simply scan it and put it into my OneNote. OneNote is by Microsoft. If you have any of this Microsoft Office program in your laptop, like Word or Excel, it usually comes with OneNote as well. Okay, and if you're scanning something and putting into the OneNote, and the words that you scribe are also being recognized by the software, you can search through it. Okay, so that is the biggest advantage of this OneNote. And yeah, so do maintain a file, and whenever you get these new ideas that to be discussed in the class, or some current affairs, some news story that you learned, you came across that you want to add into the class, or some of the stories that you would like to, or anecdotes, keep a habit of scribing these in that notebook, or index card, whatever system that works for you, but have everything in one place, right? Like OneNote, what I like. Okay, that's also a very important tip which I would like to share. Another tip is to adopt Kaizen method for teaching. So Kaizen is the Japanese management concept. That the concept is all about feedback loops on continuous improvement. So basically, don't take a fixed mindset, or don't take a fixed teaching methodology lifelong. No. So after every semester, get student feedback and ask them actually, in what sense you want to improve my own teaching. So I always approach them, get the student feedback anonymously. That is also very important. If you're asking the students anonymous feedback, then whatever the feedbacks are, you cannot trust it. Anonymous means asking their name or identity, or even forcing the Google form to collect the email. That's a sure way that the students will lie. They will simply say that you're the best teacher I ever had just to increase their grades. right? So don't fall prey of that bias. So instead of that, go for anonymous survey. Of course, the Google form do have anonymous feedback. You can simply adopt it. If you don't know how to create a Google form, just search in the YouTube. There are lots of videos on it, you know. And pay attention to their comments. Do read it. Simply asking their feedback alone is not sufficient, right? Do read thoroughly what they are commenting on. I'm sure after watching this video, you will definitely put the comments in the whatever the FTP that you're watching. And yeah, so I will definitely look at your comments, especially on positive criticism, so constructive criticism, right? So constructive criticism is with some improvement, right? That actually can bring some improvement to my my way of teaching. That constructive criticism always comes with a solution, right? If you're simply criticizing blindly, that well, you don't look good, without giving a proper solution, that makes no sense. Okay. Yeah, so that constructive criticism, pay attention to, and that can improve your teaching methodology substantially. Yeah. And also do an impact assessment at the end of semester to make sure that whatever the methodology that you're doing is working, the teaching method is really getting the intended benefit. That's something called outcome based learning, right? OBL, or outcome oriented learning, right? These days all universities have adopted it with the goals, predefined goal even before teaching anything, right? It is part of your syllabus, I guess. Yeah. So is it are the students really meeting this goal? So one of the good way to do this impact assessment is by something called Kirkpatrick model. So it's basically about the reaction first. There are multiple levels, you can see hierarchical level. First is about the reaction, how the students are reacting in the class. Do they really like the class or not? Are they enjoying the class or not? That is the first level. Second level is that learning. Are they really learning something? Are they understanding the concept? So to test at the learning level, of course, you can rely on the continuous assessment as well as a proctored end semester exam, right? While reaction from the student feedback. But then these two are really complicated, but that is the core of any class that you teach. Level 3 and level 4. The impact of it. Did the training change the behavior of the students, especially on the critical thinking? Or the results, did the training influence their performance? So that's a bit tricky, but there are workarounds to test these impact assessments too. Okay. And yeah, so learn about the Bloom's taxonomy of higher order thinking. So higher order thinking is the thinking that you really need to deliberately think, deliberately need to analyze, rather than simply memorizing the facts. So this is the issue with most of the high stake exam like GRE, or NET, or JE here in India, or NEET. Most of these exams test your rote memorization power. That is why NAP 2020 deliberately use the word coaching culture. They criticize this coaching culture. The education in our country is now simply, it's a money oriented business, simply to train the student to memorize these things just to crack an MCQ test like NEET or JEE. So we need to get away from it. That is what this Bloom's taxonomy. So one of the very good concept in pedagogy, the educational research, now Bloom's taxonomy. Please check it out. So in a nutshell, beware of the difference between facts and concept. There is a fine line, fact and concept. So fact is something like, if I ask you, who is the current president of Peru, the country, you can simply ask your smart speaker, or you can simply search in the internet, right? You can ask Bing or Google, right? So anything that can get this technology answer quickly, those are fact. But concepts need deliberate thinking, So pay more attention on teaching the concepts rather than mere facts. Are you getting? So facts will only help them to crack this high stake exam, but concepts will eventually increase their core competency. Yeah. and profusely use activities that demands a higher order thinking. For instance, for assignment, you can give some of the questions that start with develop a theory, or investigate this case study, or argue a concept, or defend a hypothesis, or apprise a social intervention, for instance. So those questions that start with these keywords are parts of higher order thinking of the Bloom's taxonomy. Yeah. And pay more attention to teach what to unlearn. That is really important with the advent of social media and you know fake news everywhere, right? So myths are everywhere, friends. We have to teach them how to unlearn. That's more important than flooding with more and more latest knowledge. The basic, they really need to unlearn it. Textbooks are flooded with misinformation. So spend more time on unlearning these popular myths. you know for instance, if I ask you, dash is the most important meal of the day. Dash, fill in the blanks. Dash is the most important meal of the day. Like a knee jerk reaction, I'm sure everybody will say out loud, it is breakfast, sir. No, that was just a advertisement jargon of Kellogg's in the early 19th century. So that is a myth. Unfortunately, we all believed in that myth. So yeah, so myth busting should be a core of the higher educational pedagogy, and give them assignments to foster the critical thinking. That is very, very important. Not merely measuring their facts memorization, but critical thinking is really important. And these days students really don't have attention span. They all have attention deficit. you know Not really, I'm blaming the students are having ADHD, no, but still their attention spans are really diminishing these days. This is the reason is the short form social media. For instance, Twitter has hard deadline of 160 letters, right, characters. So because this is the students read and they comment in very, very short stretches, and reel, Instagram reel, or YouTube, the this shorts, right? So those are really short form. But where is the time for reading some long form? For instance, traditional newspapers do have op-ed, right, opinion editorial section. Are the students really have proper time to read it, right? So, or are they writing something? Most of the text, test these days, be it NEET or JEE or NET, there is no option for the students to type the answer, right? It's simply click the MCQ. Unfortunately, that leads to a bigger problem. So instead of that, deliberately add some long form writing or essays into your assignments. At least ask them to give some keywords and ask them to develop proper essays. So it's not merely their content knowledge that you can assess, but also their writing skill, the vocabulary, and even style, English style. You can properly read it and give them constructive criticism and comments and how to improve the writing. That going to have eventually impacts on their career, right? So I hope you can incorporate this suggestion to your teaching. Yes. Yes, so the Albert Einstein's another quote. So someone asked him, a journalist asked him during the graduation ceremony, uh, like the speed of sound. The Einstein's reply was, uh, yeah, it was iconic. I do not carry such information in my mind since it's readily available in the books. The value of a college teaching is not the cramming of many facts, but the training of mind to think. If Einstein is alive today, he would have answered, it's these facts are available in internet. You can simply search out in the internet, right? So just memorization should not be the value or the goal of college education or school education too. The goal has to be training of the mind to think. The last sentence here, the last phrase, training of the mind to think. That is what the critical thinking is all about, friends. Training of mind to think. So pay more attention to the Bloom's taxonomy, so of the higher order thinking. So look at the top level, forget the bottom levels, like remembering or understanding, but the top level is more important, like formulating, developing, designing, investigating, conjuncture, assemble, construct, argue, defend. All these are part of evaluate as well as create, right? So those things, pay more attention to develop those skills in your pupil. Similarly to the Bloom's taxonomy, there are a few more profound models of pedagogy. One of my favorite is DIKW pyramid. Instead of simply paying more attention to the data and information, uh, you know, that is usually what the content creators are all about, right? Even the classroom lectures simply cover so many data and then information, right? These things are really good with the computers. The machines are excelling in data information, but put this data and information into meaningful context of knowledge and developing that into ultimate wisdom and cultured wisdom. Those are tasks that human beings excel. So that is why the students need your support into knowledge and wisdom development, not merely for data interpretation of or the information alone. So put more effort on imparting knowledge and wisdom in the classroom, putting them into context and enculturing into the community. All these are really important for developing the wisdom. And as I told you, unlearning various myth is really important. For instance, in pedagogy, that is teaching, right? One of the very popular myth is Neil Fleming's work model, also known as learning style. Unfortunately, B.Ed and even M.Ed curricula throughout the universities here in India still teach the work model of Neil Fleming as if this is unchallenged wisdom. No, not at all. Basically, the model is that students fall into four different types of learning style. Some students are they learn from oral style. Basically, they learn better if they hear the facts and concepts rather than reading, while some students have visual style by looking, right? Some have read write by reading and writing, while some are kinesthetic, that is do it yourself, so just by doing, learning by doing. So each student have got its own style, right? So first step is to identify which student falls into which learning style. Anyway, I don't want to dwell more deep into this work model because it is now established as a pseudoscience. This entire theory is gone forever. Unfortunately, B.Ed curricula and M.Ed curricula, M.Ed syllabus are not up to date. They're still teaching this outdated model, right? So that is why unlearning the myth is really important. So yes, so unfortunately, the students are like adult. They have resistance to unlearn something called confirmation bias. It's a very, very famous Chinese proverb or Chinese saying, yeah, aphorism. When the student is ready, teacher appears. What does that mean? So only when the student is receptive on learning something new, whatever teachers say is getting into their ears. Most of the time, students are like adults. They have closed mindset. Unfortunately, adults are more prone for this confirmation bias. Students are at least more receptive. They are open in the class. But when the students become adult, they will never change their belief, even if you give them thousands of reasons why what they believe is a myth. You know, yes, Epictetus, the famous Stoic philosopher, 2000 years back, lived in ancient Greece. He said it's impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. So if a person genuinely think that he already know, for example, if I think that I already know that breakfast is the most essential meal of the day, why should I change my belief that you are saying it's a myth? No, I will not learn. So that is a big problem. That is called confirmation bias. You know, another tip: preparation is the key in effective teaching. Prepare thoroughly. Even before the class starts, you need to prepare it. Break the complete syllabus into a storyboard with basics to advanced. If your syllabus is not already planned in such a way, usually the good syllabuses are already designed such a way to keep the basic first, then goes contextually and hierarchically towards the advanced level. If it is not done that way, then you have to design your classroom teaching in this way. Well planned lecture schedule, plan everything beforehand, in which day these are the concepts that I'm going to discuss, outline, and what are the objectives that you're going to cover, right? Even before the semester starts, have a solid plan on which concept to cover each day of your lecture, and devote considerable time on developing lecture handouts to provide the students well in time. So, turn back a decade. All teachers used to develop and they have to compulsorily give this lecture handouts. But these days, this practice are slowly becoming obfuscate, at least here in India, but in abroad, still the practice is rigorously being followed. So it seems that we are simply incorporating the bad essence of Western education, but the real good essence, like in American universities, if you're teaching bachelors, you have to provide them the lecture handouts. Otherwise, you will not get your pay. You know, but in here in India, it's no one checks. That is why we become lousy. So please don't be like that. Give them the handouts, at least guide them how to learn the subject. You see, that's really important. Ideally weeks before the classes, so that students come for the class prepared. That is exactly the core of flipped class model. They come to the class prepared, and the class turns out into the discussions, not really one-to-one teaching, right? So this is also a very important tip. Best teachers are happy teachers. So happy teacher habit is one of the very nice book which I read many years back. So the take home message of that book is, one tip to become effective teacher is to be happy in your life. That means treasuring work life balance, that do not work overtime. So if your college or university ends at 4 o'clock, go home exactly at 4 o'clock. There is no point in spending more time. So spend less time but focused work. That is more important than hard work. Eating up all your weekends and overtime. No, that simply increases the stress. Enjoy the weekends for the family or hobbies, to pursue all of your passions, or to relax. So relaxation, that's really important, the leisure activities. And don't devote your weekends for lecture preparation. No, that is sure way to stress your life. And do avail all the holidays, all the leaves you're entitled to, and enjoy your life, to become happy in your life. That is the number one tip to become more efficient teachers. So best teachers are happy teachers, friends. And bring postmodernism to the class. That's really important, especially for the critical thinking aspect, right? Postmodernism is that don't be too certain of everything. Have some skepticism inside you, and foster skepticism in your pupil. Accept that you might be wrong. Don't defend your opinion in the class, right? If some student are asking you a question, you don't know the answer, but don't simply bluff some invented answers in the class. So just accept that you don't know. I will look it up and come back to you in the next class. So that humbleness is more important than being authoritative, and uh, be certain of all the facts. Nothing like that, right? And don't sound like authoritarian in the class. That is also very, very important. Nowadays mistrust is everywhere. Adults are mistrusting the science and authorities in general, and the students are listening to their parents, right? And students are also distrusting the teachers in the class. That is now global phenomenon, right? So to overcome this problem, accept the fact that you don't know everything. Yeah. So role of a teacher in higher education institute is to facilitate the process of learning. It's not just giving them the fact and coaching them how to crack the MCQ type high stake exam. No, teachers are not authoritarian tutors anymore, especially for higher education, right? Adapt various teaching learning style to break the monotony. Just don't follow just only one style, but just try various way to make it better. Okay, facilitate the knowledge discovery. So this is one of my favorite quote. This is by Nikos Kazantsaskis. It's a Czech philosopher. True teachers are those who use themselves as bridges over which they invite their students to cross. So they themselves function as a bridge to cross the river, to go to the other side. So students can cross the other side. Then, having facilitated their crossing, joyfully collapse, encouraging them to create their own. So, encouraging the students to create their own bridges to cross further and further. You know, that perfectly captures the essence of, real teaching, I would say. I really like this quote. And make the classes a dialogue on the subject, not just monologue. Didactic monologues are super boring, right? Make it interactive. Dialogues are always interactive. Yeah. So be aware of social constructivist theory of pedagogy. This is a very popular theory of pedagogy. In a nutshell, this theory is that students learn only 5% in the lecture. you know Unfortunately, teachers are not aware of this fact. They think that their teaching is the best way that students become, they're imparting the wisdom to the students. Students are learning everything from their class. Not at all. Less than 5% the students learn from the classroom, from direct teaching. Most of the learning happens outside. That is usually during the peer group interaction, when the students talk to the other students in discussion or in the hostel, and also by learning by doing, in practice. So those are the thing that the students really learn. So facilitating the knowledge discovery is more important than simply teaching in the classroom. Yeah. So this is the social constructivist theory by Richardson, very famous paper. So as you can see that teaching others or immediate use, so that is why how you can learn it mostly. That is also a good technique, Feynman technique of learning. Richard Feynman, the very famous physicist, his tip to memorize everything or to learn everything efficiently is whatever the concept that you want to learn. For instance, quantum dots, the one which got the Nobel Prize in chemistry recently, 2 weeks back. So to learn quantum dots, the best way is if you learn everything and you can teach what quantum dot to a fifth grader, school, grade 5 student. If you can teach it, so that is that shows that you really learn it. So if you can teach something on a fifth grader student, explain like I'm 5. There's a very famous subreddit in I like Reddit. Yeah, subreddit LE5 is a very nice Reddit. So if you can do that, so that is the best form of learning anything substantial. So 90% of the learning happens by teaching others. 75% practice by doing. 50% is by peer group discussion group, while 20 to 30 is by audio visual demonstration. That is why multimedia and online teaching is really important. Only 5 to 10% is by lecture or reading ourselves. Yeah. So that is why this is really important. Facilitating the knowledge. Another tip is to make them laugh at least once the class. So that substantially improve the reception in the class. Yeah. Make them laugh at least once. So wit dramatically improve the reception, that improve the interaction in the class too. Deliberately include some mistakes for the students to catch, like this sentence that you're reading. You can spot a lot of mistakes in that, right? So that brings back the focus and attention to the class. The student become really more attentive to spot these mistakes. And let students interrupt you with their comments, thoughts, questions, and criticisms in between the class. Rather than simply putting a Q&A session at the end, that is not a good option. Especially that usually turns out only one question, nothing really challenging question. And you end up stopping your lecture well in time, not really adequate. Best option is that throughout your class, let students interrupt you with whatever the comments, even criticisms that they have. So encourage criticisms too, yeah. That's also a hallmark of critical thinking, isn't it? So few other tips on improving the teaching include make sure to include the stories or the popular news stories, so current affairs, analogies is like you know um, a big number. For example, the arctic tern, how many kilometer arctic tern basically travels from arctic to antarctic and back so many times in their 30-year lifetime. Such a small bird. So that how long the distance. So instead of saying the kilometers, they have no clue. You can say that, okay, its lifetime is sufficient to take 3 round trip to the moon from Earth. So Earth to moon, back, Earth to moon, and back. So 3 times. That will elicit a lot of curiosity in their pupil, right? So that is why analogies and metaphors are really important, that substantially improve the reception of your teaching. Okay. And personal anecdotes. Yeah. So many stories you can share. For example, I've been part of Indian Antarctic mission. So what did I see in Antarctic? I usually bring a lot of Antarctic stories to my class, so that substantially improve the reception. And that is also kind of a break, right? Break from the monotony of the syllabus discussion. Yeah. And whenever you put, for example, the cancer, India has a large number of cancer patient. No, impact is less. Be up to date information. As per the report in 2022, this many number is the cancer prevalence in India. That number substantially make your class much more impactful, and that means that as a teacher you're doing justice to your profession. You're up to date. It's not like mechanical making lecture. You're simply downloading some PPT and then calling it as a lecture. Not really. Put some deliberate effort to make your teaching really impactful. Put statistics and examples in your lecture that really improve your lectures. Okay. And if you're teaching like 1 hour long lecture, you can break that class into 2 or 3 subclasses with a mini break in between, in which the students can share their stories or talk something beyond the syllabus during the break time, or simply take the break to escape the monotony of the long class. Yeah. And end the class with the crux, the take home summary of the class, and important concepts that we discuss in that particular period, rather than Q&A session. The reason is that if you summarize and put some concepts there, that are going to leave a long impact. Unfortunately, the students forget 50% of what they learned in the class within 1 hour of the lecture. After the lecture is finished, within next 1 hour, all the students will be forgetting 50% of what they learn. Is something called Ebbinghaus forgetfulness curve, the curve of exponential forgetting, a very important concept in psychology and philosophy. Okay. Yes, Ebbinghaus, the German philosopher, came out with this exponential curve. So to improve the memory retention, this technique will work. End the class with take home message and key concepts that you discuss in the class. Yeah. And also ask the students and encourage the students to take a lot of notes in the class. Even how to take notes, like Cornell note taking methods. I covered all these tips and tactics in my YouTube channel. Do check out these videos. Yeah. And yeah, so encourage your student how to take efficient notes. So teach them first how to take notes and how to review it. Simply taking notes alone is not sufficient. You need to review these notes, and even reviewing can be dramatically improved by a log scale review. Log scale review means as a student, if I take a class today, so whatever the notes that I take, I have to review it tomorrow. Then, not day after tomorrow, no, I can give 1 day break. I can review after 2 days, then 2 becomes 4 days, then becomes 8 days, and 16 days. You see, so it is increasing exponentially. It is not, it is not increasing every day. Not It's not like that, huh? So yeah, log scale review is it's a very good way. And also the flashcards, right? These days a lot of free apps are available on your smartphone. Yes, so do check out, and that also incorporate this log scale reviews that will dramatically improve your memory retention, especially if you're taking these high stakes exam, which I criticize often, like GRE. But the only way to crack the GRE and to get a high score, it's not like cracking. There is nothing like a cutoff. To get a high score in GRE is to memorize all these, words. But that will eventually help you to craft better, to improve your communication skill, right? English words, if you really memorize all these things. So there are so many apps available that will periodically remind you, that will trigger your memory, right? That is something called flashcard. So the apps are really fantastic. I really like it, some of these apps. And remind the students why they are learning these things. So what is the point of learning a new concept? For example, what quantum physics. Yeah. So why they have to learn this quantum physics, right? So unless they know the application or the real life use of it, they are not really inspired to learn these concepts. So just remind them that. And also treat the teaching learning as a process. It is not like just so mechanical, going towards the goal, the end semester exam. It shouldn't be like that. It should be a process with continuous learning and continuous assessment, right? And it is iterative process. So same concept, you can discuss that in different forms, different teaching style, pedagogical style, in various days. So redundancy is absolutely fine in the classroom. Okay, so this, you can repeat it, you can recycle the same concept, no problem at all. So it's a process. Learning is a process. And include reflection points with a question that allows them to think. So ask a question and embrace the silence for the next few seconds. So the students will ruminate, they will think, they will use some deliberate thinking, higher order thinking in the classroom. That is really important. And also silence, bring them back to the focus. If you're continuously speaking, many students have a tendency to daydream. They will be worried about the future, or they will be feeling regret about the past, whatever the past mistake. But if you embrace the silence, they will suddenly become focused in the class again. So that's really important. And also discuss the related concept beyond the subjects, whatever the subject that you're teaching. Beyond the subject, do discuss some related concept from here and there, and connect these node. That's really important. The knowledge domain, different nodes. So it's not simply concept, various concepts, but how these concepts are related with each other. For instance, if you're teaching ecology, a concept called portfolio effect. Portfolio is also a term used in personal finance, economics. And ecology and economics are intricately interlinked. So if you discuss some economics principles, and you use, for example, no free lunch is a concept in economics, or tragedy of commons is another concept in economics. Highly useful, both these concept in ecology too. Yeah. So how you connect these different concepts, these nodes, if you put in a mind map, so how these nodes are connected, that is, I think that is a key step towards developing wisdom. It's not simply a fact and concept, but how they are really connected with each other. Another example is that in evolution, which I teach, a theory of punctuated equilibrium. Yeah, so that is a latest concept here. I can relate this concept with completely different development. For example, in politics, political upheaval is also punctuated equilibrium model, you know, and or even how the science progress by, of course, two ways, isn't it? Falsification and paradigm shift of Thomas Kuhn, you know. So falsification is gradual process, but paradigm shift is non-linear, which is also quite similar to the punctuated equilibrium model. So when I speak about punctuated equilibrium, I keep connecting these nodes together from philosophy of science to politics, so unrelated field. Another example would be human evolution. So if you teach human evolution or evolution in general, you can also connect that with linguistic evolution. So language, how, if you trace this, how the languages are evolved, to a large extent, that trace how human beings have evolved. Quite unrelated field, but you can connect it. Use a lot of you in the class instead of putting all yourself, you see, or unrelated subject as if it's unquestionable wisdom. Not really. So put the focus on the pupil. Focus should be on the students, not on ourselves or on the subject, you see. So that makes whatever you discuss in the class in practice, right? Put in context, right? Avoid negations, irritants, even I have this inflection in my own communication. Unfortunately, strategies, I'm trying to improve my communication, but unfortunately it doesn't work. I still subconsciously use this you might have seen it, right? Or all these are negations, unfortunately. Yeah, beware of it. Watch your own videos and see that what are the problems in your communication style, and try to be a little bit deliberate. Or even you can put some of these things on your near the camera, right? These post-it notes, uh, you know for instance, smile looking at your camera, whatever be. Speaking as if sharing a secret, right? So students will be instantly focused. Oh, you're sharing some secret in your class. So that's also a good technique to bring the attention back into focus mode, right, in the classroom. And as I told you earlier, take frequent pauses so the students can think. It's something called liminal point or liminal breaks, so that students can think. They will be confused of why the teacher is pausing. So if the mind is wandering somewhere, it brings instantly back into the class. And try to reduce nods and all these are inflections or irritants or negations, right? And try to do that. Yeah, incorporate that into your teaching style. Lower the end of sentences, like how I'm talking to you right now. That is it's a good strategy to improve the charisma, you see. So, and also the reception in the classroom, if you can naturally incorporate this to lower the end of sentences. The intonation has to be falling down towards the sentence end. And designing the questions itself is a good teaching method. You are asking the students, teaching learning, of course, that incorporate the learning as well. Asking the students to come up with some thought provoking questions that test their conceptual understanding, higher order thinking, elicitate higher order thinking in Bloom's taxonomy, right? So it could be an excellent assignment, asking students to come up with excellent questions and grade. As a teacher, you can grade the standard or quality of these questions. So how do you grade this question? So if the question is merely asking for a fact, for example, how many planets, natural planets moon has, or the moon, how many moons the satellite, the Saturn has, right? Natural satellites, not planets. How many satellites the Saturn has, right? You can simply put that can easily be searched out in a Google, and anyone can answer it in a fraction of time, isn't it? That's not a good question, right? So come out with thought-provoking questions. So if the questions are testing higher order thinking in the Bloom's taxonomy, that means that these are of very high standard, right? And grade higher in such questions. Okay, so it has to be creative and original questions. So that kind of original questions, so the questions which is picked up from the internet, definitely very low grade. Or asking the generative AI like chat GPT to design a question, very very bad mark. But if it is creative, really creative questions and really testing their higher order thinking, that is pretty good. The questions have to be indirect and elicit implicit answers, not direct answer, but it's kind of indirect answers. Yes. So good questions are the one that this AI as well as this internet search should fail to provide the answers. That could be a good heuristic to grade which which questions are good quality questions and which are not. Okay. And micro teaching itself is it's a great way on imparting this learning among the students. So the micro teaching is basically asking the student to teach something. I told you about Feynman technique of learning, right? So if you can teach a concept to a fifth grader efficiently so that the fifth grader is satisfied with your answer, that means that you are learning the subject very well. So that is called micro teaching method, asking the students to take class. So it's not about teaching itself, but the process of preparing for the class. So in that process, they really develop the deep knowledge of the concepts. So unless they learn themselves, they can never teach, you see. So that's an excellent way of uh, teaching any concept to students. Yeah. So but the teacher's role, I told you that the role, I want to emphasize that the role of teacher is to facilitate the knowledge discovery. It's not just a rote memorization, not really. Yeah? It's about facilitating knowledge discovery. And so the teacher, when the students are taking this micro classes or micro teaching, teacher's role is not a passive observer as if their job is already taken care by students. No, don't be that lazy. Be active in that class so that give them constructive feedback how to improve your teaching. Or if the students are discussing some concepts without proper understanding, speak out, right? You can interrupt the students and say that, okay, your interpretation of that concept is wrong. And if students are struggling to come up with the proper or efficient examples or metaphor, help the student. This is a good example which you can use to explain that concept. So be active, be deliberate when the students are taking this micro teaching. That can substantially improve your teaching style. Okay, so I hope these tips will definitely help you to become on a process. Yeah, it's of course a process on becoming an efficient teacher to improve your teaching style in the class. So before concluding this talk, I would like to read out the Russell's 10 commandments for the teachers. Bertrand Russell, friends, he was a very, very famous British philosopher and mathematician, of course. And Bertrand Russell is also one of the leading figures behind, the scientific methodology itself, how the science evolved. If you look the history of science and philosophy of science, Russell's contribution is commendable. Okay, so his 10 commandments for the teachers, the first one, which I already told you, do not feel absolutely certain of anything. Always add a pinch of skepticism, okay, doubt, and impart that and train your students to have like that. Don't believe anything without proper evidence, right? So that has to be the objective of higher educational teaching learning system. Okay, so the critical thinking, as Einstein famously said, that has to be the goal of a higher education teaching learning system. Okay, postmodernism is also same. Yeah, don't feel absolutely certain of anything. Second tip, do not think it's worthwhile to proceed by concealing the evidence, for the evidence is sure to come to the light. If you are already convinced that whatever you're going to teach is wrong, and some obvious example of some evidence, and still you're trying to trying to conceal that evidence, wrong way, because evidence will definitely come to the light in one point or another, right? And just be truthful to your topic, friends, right? You're a teacher, right? Generations, you're training generations, right? So be truthful to whatever the subject that you teach, and don't conceal any fact. If you know something, then speak it out and share that wisdom with the students, right? Third, never try to discourage thinking, for you are sure to succeed. So discourage the thinking is is that the students, if they have some independent thinking, and the criticism also, of course, if the students are criticizing you, yeah, so don't take it to your heart and don't take it personally and discourage. No, you cannot criticize authoritarian figures like teacher. You should never be incorporating that kind of teaching style in your class. Okay, so encourage the thinking, encourage the critical thinking. That is really important in the class. Fourth tip, when you meet with opposition, even if it should be from your husband or your children, no, he's going beyond the class too, even if from your husband or wife or your children, children is criticizing you or opposing your worldview, what should you do? Endeavor to overcome it with argument, not by authority. Even argument has got its own merit, so the best kind of arguments are the one which attacks a central point, while the worst kind of arguments are the argument that attacks the person who is posing the argument. The people will say, oh, who are you as a person? You are only a student. So therefore the questions stand void. That is the inferior kind of argumentation. Superior kind is that forget who is asking that question, forget his or her educational background or gender or or race. It doesn't matter at all. Just see the central point of the argument and then counter argue that. That is more important. That is a sane way. That is the most ethical way of dealing with this opposition and arguments. Okay. And he adds, for a victory depends upon authority is unreal and illusory. You see, it's illusory, it's unreal, it's not organic, right? In the class, if a student is opposing your concept, don't try to say that, okay, you're not supposed to ask this kind of thing, right? I'm a teacher. Teachers are unquestionable. No, that is a hallmark of bad teacher and bad teaching. Be open for criticism and stay a student lifelong and be humble and accept the fact that you don't know everything in the world. You're not a know all. You're not a living encyclopedia, and say that you will look it up and come with the next class, or encourage others also to look up the answers for the thought-provoking questions. So I think that's really important. Fifth point is that have no respect for the authority of others, for there are always contrary authorities to be found. You know, so whoever says that I'm the authority in that field, distrust them. Very very interesting. So I think it is a core of the you know the critical thinking. Yeah, people are trying to fool you, bringing this authoritarian figure, be it in a book. Some books comes with gold spine, as if the book is unchallenged. And if you challenge that book, people will kill you. Oh, come on. Have no respect for the authority of others. That is what a profound wisdom of Russell coming here, you see. So, yeah, so people are trying to fool you. I want to emphasize on that point. For instance, if you look in the TV advertisement, celebrity figures will endorse something, and there are a lot of cognitive bias that are influencing our own decision making, so such that we fall prey of them, such that the decisions that we make become inferior quality. For instance, you're looking at that you know dental products like a toothbrush or a toothpaste. Chances are high that you will see some dentist recommending it, wearing the lab coat and a stethoscope, authority figure. But as per this, yeah, so this one, the fifth point of the Russell, have no respect for the authority because there are a lot of contrary authorities. So instead of authority figure, eliciting this authority figure, if a student is asking, okay, how many kingdoms of the life are there? Taxonomy question. And then you say, okay, there are 3 domains of life as per Carl Vuse. No, wrong answer. Who is this Carl Vuse? Carl Vuse has been one of the very famous taxonomists. Now the 3 domain system is now superseded. It has become obsolete. Now it is 6 kingdom classification system of Cavalier Smith from Oxford. That is the most up to date. Although even the zoology's syllabus hardly teach it. I told you the syllabus don't get revision. People are lazy. Unfortunately, this is the truth. You can check it out. If you don't believe me, check it out. Your own zoology taxonomy, are they really following the Cavalier Smith Sixth Kingdom? Chances are really low. But anyway, if you're teaching Cavalier Smith Sixth Kingdom and teaching as if this is unchallengeable wisdom, wrong way of teaching, because there are no authorities in science. So accept that fact. It's really important, okay? Have no respect for the authority of others. Even Nobel Prize winners can be challenged properly, okay? And do not use the power to suppress the opinions that you think pernicious. For if you do, the opinions will suppress you. There are no prohibited questions in the class. Just encourage any questions from any student's friends. That is a hallmark of the best way of teaching as per the Bertrand Russell. Yeah, there is no censored questions, so no prohibitions in the class. The questions, the students can ask any questions, right? So yeah, so that is you have to encourage that kind of independent thinking. And the seventh is also quite related. Do not fear to be eccentric in opinion, for every opinion now accepted was once eccentric. Yes, so do not fear. And let the pupil also do not become fearful if they have this kind of eccentric in opinion. For instance, Earth is not really the center of universe. Copernicus thought like that, and he wrote about it. So many people opposed his worldview that heliocentric, right? The sun is the center of the solar system. It's not really Earth. People branded him eccentric, insane. Fortunately, he escaped whatever the punishment. Copernicus was okay, but Bruno came later, right? His contemporary, and the Bruno, what he did is he simply supported Copernicus worldview. Nicholas Copernicus, what he says is correct. Bruno said, poor guy. What did this Catholic clergyman did? He burnt him alive. So, friends, eccentric opinions are not really forever eccentric. Whatever things that we take it for granted today, like Earth is just a planet revolving around the sun. Sun itself is a star revolving to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, the black hole. All these were once eccentric, you know. Eighth is find more pleasure in intelligent dissent than passive agreement. You know, the reason is that yes. So for if you value the intelligence as you should, the former implies deeper agreement than the later. You see, so intelligent dissent. Dissent is you know not agreeing some point of view, that is what difference of opinion, that is the dissent. So intelligent dissent is a lot better than passive agreement. Passive agreement, the person might not agree really, but they'll just say yes, yes, yes sir, yes sir, just to appease the teachers. That is not efficient at all, because the intelligent that is what, if you value the intelligent, the former implies a deeper agreement. So yeah, so intelligent dissent is much better than passive agreement. That is I think that's very, very important in the classroom. Ninth commandment of the Bertrand Russell is be scrupulously truthful, even if the truth is inconvenient, for it is more inconvenient when you try to conceal the truth. So for whatever be the inhibition, for example, okay, the popular holy book, whatever be the holy book, that holy book version of the evolution is against Darwin's theory of evolution, and then you try to conceal that truth because the truth is inconvenient. That is not, you're not being truthful teacher, friends. Yeah, so or whatever be your belief system, forget everything. Don't bring that, don't mix that with your teaching. That is the ninth point of the Russell, is really important. Okay, be scrupulously truthful. That is a Kantian ethics, right? So lies, if the lies shall kill you, let you die. That is what the Kant, right? Immanuel Kant's version of the philosophy. 10th, the last commandment of the Russell is do not feel envious of the happiness of those who live in fool's paradise. Look at that. It is a simple criticism. Yeah? He's criticizing those who live in fool's paradise. Don't feel envious of them. For only a fool will think that it is happiness. So basically what he's trying to say is bringing up your confirmation bias into the class and calling yourself as an efficient teacher, wrong. That is not hallmark of an efficient teacher. So I would like to end here, and thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope it has been useful to you. And yeah, so I'm looking forward for the comments and even criticisms, right? What do you think of this video? Has it been useful for you to improve your classroom teaching? So I'm looking forward for the interactive sessions. Okay. And yes, so thank you for this session, and take care. Bye.